Friday night, September 8th, 2017, and here we go. Let me pull up the feed here so I can keep an eye on comments and all that good stuff. My name is Sean Fisher. This is the Black Bag Resources Friday Night Brain Dump. Yeah, we'll jump right in. It's been a crazy day, particularly today for some reason. Just across the board. Yeah, Tim, I'm late. Thanks. It's been nutso, to say the least. 60-hour work week. My day job is putting me through first responders training, so I'll explain that real quick. I am not in law enforcement or the medical field, so when you think first responders, don't think firemen, police, EMT, that kind of thing. I work for New Jersey's version of Child Protective Services. So first responders to us is the initial investigative unit that goes out and makes first contact when a report comes in with the family. So interview techniques for kids who may have been neglected, abused, those kinds of things. Interview techniques for parents, non-offending parents, all that stuff, which is kind of outside my title based on what I actually do on a daily basis. I was attached to an intake unit in the past, but it looks like they're grooming me to go back into that. So we'll see where it goes. So I've got 2 days under my belt as far as that goes. I've got another 4 days to go over the course of the next 2 months because it's broken up in modules. But then I complete that program, whatever. So my brain's a little fried. And then add to it all the other craziness that's going on in the world. Texas, Florida, Harvey, Irma, Jose, whoever the next one is behind Jose. We've got insane storms rolling in, one right after another. John Farmer's here. Rachel is busting my chops for being late. Dan Ingram is here. Glad to see Dan's here. Dan, you better get some rest just in case we have to execute what we were talking about earlier. And Chris is here. Hey, Chris. Glad to see you. Yeah, so but it's just been one thing after another. So trying to get ready as much as I can here, because all right, let me take a big step back. If we get into my philosophy on this stuff, and this is all just my philosophy, your mileage may vary. There's a difference between being prepared and being ready, right? Preparedness means buying a pair of boots and breaking them in and making sure they fit and having a pair of boots on hand if you need to do work or protect your feet or whatever boots do, right? All those good things. That's preparedness. If the need arises, you have those boots available to you. Being ready means that those boots are set up and next to your bed so that as soon as you wake up, you can put your feet in those boots and go handle your business. That's ready. So a lot of us are prepared for things, but have to get ready, right? I have everything I need here. We're very well set up, but I have to line up all my ducks and get them ready to actually be used should the need arise. So we've identified some specific needs that are coming in the next 48 hours with the hurricane landing. We've also got a couple of events coming up, so there's prep work that goes into getting ready for those. With the evacuations in Florida, we're obviously following up on friends, family, and loved ones, people we care about that are either in harm's way or could possibly be in harm's way, since all the potential maps show it could do anything, right? I look like I'm doing some stupid dance moves here. So it could be any number of scenarios. Still, as close as we are to touchdown, things could shift very quickly. So it is what it is. Couple of people in particular, I have to keep an eye on. Obviously, my family here, and as big as Irma is, that storm, even if it doesn't hit us directly, could affect weather patterns well beyond where she touches down. And we could see pretty severe weather as far north as where we are in Pennsylvania. This isn't meant to be frightening or anything like that. What I'm talking about is just a lot of rain, right? We could see a lot of rain up here because that storm is enormous and it's going to affect all these other weather patterns, whatever. So knowing where we are, we have a tendency to lose power a little bit here and there. I don't expect to have a long-term power loss scenario like we did in New Jersey after Hurricane Katrina. Which one was it? Sandy hit us and knocked the power out for where I was 8 or 9 days, something like that. Other places were out a lot longer. If you were close to the shore, obviously you guys remember stuff just got completely destroyed and it took years to rebuild. So that's what they're looking at down in Texas. Obviously, Florida is bracing for impact. Realistically, up here, we could see a lot of foul weather that may cause some inconveniences compared to what other people are going through. But obviously, we take steps to mitigate those issues as much as we possibly can. It's water tonight, guys, because we've got a lot of kind of heavy stuff to talk about. So, all right. Chris is making jokes. My brother is here. Henry Martin, hello. April is logged in under her paintball superhero alter ego. John Willett is here. Jack is here. And Chris is reminding me that that was Hurricane Sandy that hit New Jersey. I like I said, my brain is kind of fried. The training was pretty intense. We went through a lot of stuff. Hi, Terry. Terry's here. So yeah, and you're dealing with some really difficult topics and some things that I wouldn't wish on anybody. Kind of the long story short version of that. So yeah, if I seem like I'm a little off, that's why. And of course now I'm messing all this up. There we go. So yeah. In talking to a couple of friends, they've got family down in Florida, elderly folks that may need help in various ways. We've got a lot of things to deal with as far as that goes. I have other friends, and if you follow me on Facebook or even following the business, you probably notice some overlap with some other companies and things. One of them is my buddy Chris, who owns Starlight Gaming, which is a video game store down in Somerville, South Carolina. He's in the path of what may need to be evacuated as a direct result of this storm. Chris is a good guy. We've been friends since high school. His daughter is my goddaughter. So again, we'll take a step back in the whole preparedness, understanding of what you're supposed to do. We'll talk evacuation etiquette. You find yourself in a scenario where shelter in place is no longer an option and you have to evacuate. If you've taken the Black Bag Resources Guide to Bug Out Bags, or you've been to any of my brief presentations on the subject, you know that in addition to the basic three, food, water, and shelter, you also need to have a destination and you need to protect your wealth, right? So we talked about protecting your wealth last week and using the little thumb drive and saving all your important documents on that. We'll come back to that later. But having a destination is a big part of that, because if you don't have a location to go to, if you don't have a destination, your bug out bag is just a refugee kit. Now, this becomes exponentially more important when you're not talking about just yourself, right? Macho guys always love talking about their inch bags. I'm never coming home. INCH. So that's all well and good for the Rambo types who just want to grab their SKS and run in the woods anytime anything bad happens. But for those of us who live in the real world and have to deal with more than that, and have the additional responsibilities of a spouse, children, maybe you care for elderly parents, you have other people you have to take care of. So again, that destination becomes exponentially more important. Having multiple locations is also critical in that if it was a house fire or something very small, something locally contained within your township, maybe it's a smaller power outage, you can just go across town to a friend's house, crash there for a few days, and when things get back to normal, you go back home, right? Very simple. Something big like this, you need to have additional retreat locations further out. So think about those concentric circles, right? Little problem, you just have to move a small distance. Bigger problem, you have to move farther away. Major catastrophe, you have to flee. And it may be over the course of several states, which is what we're seeing now. There's people in Florida that have to get out of Florida. And you can't just go as far as Georgia and go, okay, I'm good. Because Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia could get hit with some of this. So you're having to move several hundred miles to get out of harm's way. So in doing that, in going to your retreat location, which you've already set up with friends, family, teammates, whoever, one of the concepts we always talk about is your ticket. This is what you bring to the table other than a hungry belly, right? You have to have some sort of skills to offer to the tribe, as it were. You have to have your own supplies to take care of yourself, and you should probably bring something to offer to the group. So what specifically are we talking about there? If you're a mechanic, you bring mechanical skills to the team, right? If you're a doctor, you bring medical skills to the team. If you're a firearms guru, you bring firearms knowledge and probably a bunch of guns, right? And that's one of the things all the macho guys like to say, oh, well, I'm the gun guy. Well, you better layer up your team with more folks than just gun guys, because sooner or later something's going to break and you can't just shoot it to solve the problem. So, all right, let me pause here because I see there's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, my brother was here earlier today. He commented that he helped because obviously with April being pregnant, Jimmy came out to help and do some of the heavy lifting and moving things in the house to accommodate potential house guests that are going to be coming over the next couple of days or whatever. John Willett is bringing up that beaten to death catchphrase, stronger than the storm. Terry says she's got a bunch of close friends in the direct path. Most have evacuated, but some are staying in shelters. Very worried about them. Terry, this is a great thing about modern technology. You've got a bunch of different ways to keep in touch with those friends that may or may not be in harm's way or have already evacuated and are either in a shelter or at their personally designed retreat location, whether they're at a friend's house, family's house, whatever. You can get them on Facebook Messenger. You can get them on Facebook. You can get them on their cell phones. You can get them Skype. There's tons and tons and tons of technology that don't necessarily depend on full grid communications that you can keep in touch with them and hopefully make sure they're okay and at least get a little peace of mind out of it. April comments that make sure your destination knows you're coming. Yeah, that's a critical part of it. You have to have this thing set up in advance with the people who are already there. Don't just show up at your friend's house and, hey, we're here. Hope that's okay, because that creates a lot of stress and maybe they're not ready to welcome you in for whatever reason, right? It is what it is. Sometimes our perception is off and people aren't necessarily as accommodating as we expect them to be. Jimmy's talking about our cousin. Joe Midoff says she brings pretzels and sarcasm. So there you go. Joe has a great sense of humor. She's also got a bunch of skills. She and her husband are both competent firefighters involved in all kinds of stuff. Joe's got medical training. Phil has mechanical training in HVAC and heating and all those things. So they bring a lot to the table. And Joe also brings awesome pretzels. That's just flat out truth. Tim says he's going to bring the guns. Yeah, but Tim will bring guns with no ammo because Tim's always complaining he doesn't have money for ammo. Oh, I said it in front of everybody, Tim. Okay, so back to the ticket concept. It's not a paper ticket, right? Like, oh, I've got my ticket, you'll let me in, right? No, you have to have food, water, shelter, right? And something to offer to the group. So generally when we talk about those things, it's bringing some kind of resources. If you're the gun guy, you're bringing extra guns for other members of the party. You're bringing extra ammo for other members of the party. You're bringing, you know, if my wife is phenomenal in the kitchen, she would probably be bringing food, cookbooks, spices, things like that, so that she can beef up whatever meals are being prepared for the group. So the reason I'm getting into that is this is something we've talked about frequently on Facebook, in conversations, in courses, in classes, and a lot of people go, oh, well, I'll just come to your house. And they've heard me say, not without your ticket, you won't. And it opens up that dialogue about what it is you should be bringing, right? Because anybody who's involved in preparedness has gotten the, oh, well, I don't need to prep for it, right? It's the old fable about the grasshopper and the ant. You've done all the work, so I'll just come mooch off of you. Well, the hell you will. So realistically, my buddy Chris may come up here with his family, depending on whether or not they need to evacuate, choose to evacuate, all those things. He was very concerned about his ticket and making sure he brought enough for himself, every member of his party. We were on the phone and he's going, man, I don't know how I'm going to fit all this because we got to bring this, this, and this. And I'm probably going to have to bring 2 cars and blah, 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 and stuff for the baby. And, blah, 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 blah. And I went, stop. The reality is we all make exceptions at one point or another. Chris has been a very good friend for a very long time. I don't care if he shows up with his family and they are all stark, bare-ass naked. I'm not going to turn him away, right? It is what it is. Ticket or no ticket, my door is open to him. That's all there is to it. Have that conversation ahead of time, though, guys, so that if you're going somewhere in less than ideal conditions, and maybe you had a plan for a ticket and got into a car accident during the evacuation, or got robbed right before you were able to get out of town, which happens, right? Bad people take advantage of bad situations. It's the reality of the world we live in. Sometimes shit goes wrong, even when shit's already going wrong, and it just snowballs. Talk to whoever it is you're going to go stay with before you have to go stay there about what the deal is, right? Okay, this is the expectation. What if in a worst case scenario I can't meet that expectation? Is this still okay, or should I come up with an alternate plan? I'm telling Chris, no, you don't have to come up with an alternate plan. Get your ass up here. Doesn't matter. We got you covered, right? But that needs to be a conversation you have before you're standing on your friend's doorstep. That's all. All right, back to the comments real quick. Yeah, here's the other thing. You need to maintain communications during your evacuation plan, and this is a point April's making, and this is why I love her, because she's freaking brilliant when it comes to this stuff. If a friend bugs out and you show up and they are not there, you are now in a bad place. So you activate your evacuation plan, and you know you're going to your friend's house, right? Your friend A, their friend B. Friend A evacuates and goes to friend B's house. Well, guess what? Friend B also evacuated. And now friend A is at friend B's house and friend B ain't home. Guess what? You're back where you started with nothing. You got to keep moving, homie. So there you go. Tim's clarifying that he was talking about his great big bulging muscles. Rachel says she can cook and John can be in charge of producing podcasts and making spreadsheets. Well, spreadsheets can be used to start fires, which can help provide heat for warming food. So technically, John's helping you cook. How's that? It's all about creative solutions. Jimmy's going to bring batteries, and that's something I'm definitely going to get set up in the next couple of days. Jimmy, my brother, got his hands on a massive quantity of batteries that we bring to different events where batteries are necessary, right? Paintball games and things we go to where people are going to need batteries. There's camping, things like that. Because he got them at such an extremely discounted price, he offers them at an extremely discounted price. He makes a little bit of money, whatever. I'm going to set this up on the website so those batteries are available either locally or I can ship them to you, because we know that in hard times, milk, eggs, bread all disappear from the shelves pretty quick, followed by bottled water and batteries. If you've paid attention through any snowstorm, any power outage, Sandy, Katrina, any of these other massive storms that have hit us, those are the things in that order that kind of vaporize from store shelves. Chris was arguing with people online. Stop doing that, Chris. Stop it. It's not productive. All you're doing is driving up your blood pressure and working on giving yourself an ulcer. Stop it. April's also good at starting fires. She's pointing that out. Not just cooking and being creative and beautiful. Yes. Yes. Don't ever let me forget. I never forget, but don't ever let me forget. And that's why I love that chick. All right. So, we talked about your evacuation plan, your bug out bag, your retreat location, coordinating with the people at your retreat location, bringing your ticket, what to do if you don't have your ticket. What about when someone refuses to leave, right? We're seeing stuff online that there's evacuation orders for the entire state of Florida. And people who might not otherwise be leaving are leaving. And people who probably should be leaving are staying. And again, this one kind of touches close to home because talking to a friend of mine, he's got family who should have evacuated and have decided to stay and originally talked about splitting up the family. Okay. As someone who splits up families on a professional level due to abuse and neglect, that is difficult enough. What I will tell you flat out is no child wants to leave their parent, period. And if you tell the child, you're going, I'm staying, the child's first answer is going to be, I want to stay too. So if you're the parent and you're responsible for the safety and well-being of everybody else in the household, get out, right? Shelter in place is fine until it's no longer fine. There's April. Everybody get excited. There's April. Hi, baby.
Hi.
There she is.
I'm going to go eat.
She's hungry. Prego's hungry. She's got to feed the baby. Okay, so when you're responsible for other people and it's time to evacuate, you have to evacuate. Right? You guys know this from conversations, trainings, blah, blah, blah. You've always heard me say that I prefer shelter in place as long as possible, right? Sheltering in place is the best option until it's no longer the best option. And when it's no longer the best option, you have to evacuate quickly and decisively. And timing is critically important, right? Because you don't want to get caught up in the rest of the herd that's trying to flee. Because anytime you see a large group of animals moving in a panic, what happens? The smaller ones get trampled, the older ones get trampled, the sick ones get trampled. Be realistic about which animal in the pack you are. If you are not the alpha leading the charge, you're probably one of those weaker members of the herd. And if that's the case, you're putting yourself at extreme risk being stuck in that pack. Let's call it what it is. Let's also not ignore the possibility of predators, right? There are people who are going to capitalize on these bad situations. There's a lot of talk over the last couple of days about price gouging versus free market capitalism, right? And everybody wants to be a free market capitalist until the price goes up, and then they get mad and it's all of a sudden price gouging. No, it's the market charging what the market will support, right? If people start paying $50 for a $5 case of water, guess what? There's going to be people who charge $50 for a $5 case of water. If you don't want to pay $50 for a $5 case of water, don't pay $50 for a $5 case of water. It's a pretty simple equation. If you don't pay it, they can't charge that anymore. Call it what it is. If you see some other sucker paying that, you can have a conversation with them. Be polite, be persuasive. Don't pick a fight, but go, hey, you realize this guy's kind of being a jerk and taking advantage of a bad situation. Maybe you shouldn't do business with him. You always have that option in a capitalist society. Use it. One of the other podcasts we're on, the Gun and Gear Review podcast for the Firearms Radio Network, there's a new guy, Zane. Zane's great. I highly recommend you follow Zane because he's kind of taking the side of free market capitalism over price gouging. And he's shown in a video on his page the perfect solution on how to deal with paying too much for bottled water. You take a container and you take water from the tap and you put it in the container and you store it.
Like the freezer.
Like the freezer, yeah. All right, so if you've got a cooler, you can use a cooler. If you like, I have the 7-gallon big blue cube aquatainers that have the spigot built into them. They're kind of big and heavy. They're a bit much for April, but I have no problem picking one of those up and throwing it on the counter. So that's one of the things I have to do. Again, prepared versus ready. I have the containers in the house. I have to fill them. I'll be doing that after the show tonight. So you can store water a bunch of different ways. You don't have to go buy bottled water. It's not necessary. Here's the other thing. You'll see the cases of 12-ounce water bottles gone. And right next to it are the gallon jugs still sitting there. You can buy the gallon jugs. It doesn't have to be little single-serving water bottles, guys. Think outside the box. If you've got a Camelback, fill it. If you've got empty soda bottles, fill them. If you've got empty juice containers, fill them. Throw them back in the fridge. Obviously, wash them out, rinse them, clean them, all that stuff. Get them good and clean. Fill them with water and use them. It doesn't have to be prepackaged water. You've got access to water. This isn't a third world country. So, a little bit of keeping your wits about you will go a long way. What else? What do you guys, hit me with questions here, guys, because I'm sure I'm touching on a lot of things. And it's probably getting your wheels turning on some other stuff. Let me know in the comments here. What?
Powdered milk.
Powdered milk. Okay. April's over there shouting suggestions at me. Powdered milk. If you have kids, most grocery stores will sell powdered milk. What section is it in?
I found it in the baking aisle down towards the bottom.
Okay, in the baking aisle down towards the bottom, she said. That's where she found it this last time. We usually keep it in the house just in case. You can use it in baking. You can use it on cereal. You can drink it, right? It's basically just dehydrated milk. It's got an extremely long shelf life. It's usually the equivalent of whole milk with the fat content and all that. I don't know how it works. I'm not a scientist. I'll leave that to somebody else who's much smarter than me to explain. But you can get it in smaller pouches, or you can get it in like a bigger package that you're just going to scoop out, mix with water, and chill, and it's going to taste like milk. It doesn't taste like great milk, but it tastes like milk. If you have kids in the house, this is absolutely essential, because you know how kids go through milk, unless they have an allergy, right? Work it out. We had some in the smaller pouches. It's been around a long time, since before we were even in this house. I'll drink that. April, little Sean, the baby, those are other considerations. I don't expect them to use it. I'm not worried about me. And realistically, I don't think it's going to hurt me in any way. And again, I have the immune system to fight whatever's going to come out of it anyway. We did get 2 of the bigger packages fresh just for this event. Again, it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago. As soon as we started talking about this stuff, April went to the store and got new, fresh, long-term storage powdered milk. Long-term storage food is another option. You got to turn the volume off, babe.
I'm working on it.
So long-term storage food, there's a couple of options there. Try to store what you eat, right? And just rotate, just like a grocery store does. You're going to have a supply of food that you can rotate through. Oldest stuff goes in the front. You use that up first. You rotate through. As you work back, you're getting towards the newest stuff. Things to keep on hand. Canned fruit, canned vegetables, soups, all those things are pretty easy. The things you have to be wary of are sodium content is usually pretty high in anything that's got a long shelf life. It means it's got a lot of salt in it. You need to increase your water intake, which means storing more water than you think you're going to need, drinking more water than you think you need to, and flushing that stuff out of your system. Jimmy's got a comment here that's really long that I'm not going to read on air because I have to open this up, and I don't know if I'm going to screw that up, so we'll leave it alone. Everybody's saying hi to April, and Joe Girardi just popped in. Hey, Joe. So there's a lot of layers there. One of the things I sell is long-term storage food. I'm not a big fan of MREs. They're kind of disgusting. I've eaten them. I'm over it. I like Mountain House a lot better. Weiss Food is pretty good. Mountain House is better than Weiss Food in my opinion as far as the way things taste. It's generally freeze-dried, dehydrated foods. So add water, heat it up, and eat it. But again, sodium content tends to be pretty high on a lot of those. They do have vegetarian options. They do have gluten-free options. The ones I prefer, like I can get you individual meals, but generally I prefer the big buckets. It's a big, like 5-gallon size bucket. You've got a ton of stuff in there, and they cover the gamut, right? It'll have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, a couple of snacks, drink mixes, powdered milk, all those things are in there. My brother, okay, we're going to get into a little thing here. Tim wants to know, what are your suggestions with prescription medications in a long-term GTFO situation, looting pharmacies? No, I'm not going to advocate on air robbing pharmacies and illegally taking possession of controlled medications. What you need to do is talk to your doctor about getting enough of your prescriptions that you can put them aside for a longer period of time, right? If you're normally getting a 1-month supply, you can talk to your doctor and say, look, these are some of the things I'm concerned about. I would like to have a little bit more of this medication on hand. Can I get a 3-month supply of this prescription? And then it's just rotating like you do everything else. With the understanding that your doctor may refuse, right, depending on what that medication is. If it's an opioid-based pain medication, chances are your doctor's going to be pretty stiff on letting you have more of that than you're supposed to because of the rate of abuse, right? It is what it is. Unfortunately, junkies ruin it for those of us involved in preparedness. Joe's asking about other options other than MREs. We just talked about that. My brother says, speaking of flushing, fill your tubs and pots and pans to get rid of waste in the toilet. If the water stops working, you need water to flush the toilet too. That's the only reason I advocate filling the tub. And I've seen these water bobs and things that are for storing drinking water and all that. I'm not a big fan of using the bathtub for anything other than as a bathtub. because they're not really clean, right? Think about what you do in there. And some of you do some pretty gross stuff in the shower. I don't judge, but I don't want you drinking out of that either. So it is what it is. I'm not a fan of using the bathtub for drinking water. For water storage, for flushing the toilet, that's a separate issue. Go for it. Pots and pans, yeah, depending on what your scenario is, right? If you are right in harm's way and you feel you may lose everything, you probably should have evacuated. If you didn't, and now you're trying to figure out alternate solutions in a bad situation, yeah, go fill your bathtub, fill pots and pans. Good luck. John Willett says anything but MREs. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Dan says his folks made it to a hotel in Georgia. So hopefully tomorrow morning after they get a few hours rest, they're going to get back on the road. Joe says most controlled meds are going to be a hell no, not just no. Yeah, it is what it is there. And Tim saying yes, they have. So there you go. That's kind of the long and short of it on the medication. Anything over the counter, obviously you can kind of stock up on. If there's something that you're allowed to purchase, you've got options there, guys. And as you get into the more hardcore preparedness stuff, you'll see things like there are antibiotics that are sold at pet stores that are meant for fish, that are not really meant for human consumption. But again, in a bad situation where, let's say you're in a part of Texas where that storm hit and there's really no other supplies, and you had the foresight to take some fish antibiotics and store those in your bug out bag, and now you've got a pretty nasty cut that's looking infected. You gonna take those antibiotics? Yeah, probably. It's not the best option, but it's certainly better than letting that infection spread and turn septic. Again, we're keeping in mind these are not first choices, right? These are not best practices by any stretch. These are things have gone really, really bad, and we're into plans D, E, and F. We've gone way past plan A, B, and C. So that's kind of the meat and potatoes there. Another one I've seen floating around that I really don't like, guys, is this thing that I keep seeing on Facebook. Take your valuables and put them in your dishwasher, because your dishwasher is waterproof. So if your house floods, it'll protect that stuff. If that stuff is important and you're fleeing, why the hell are you leaving it in the house at all? Take it with you. Don't leave it in the dishwasher. If your house gets destroyed, what's the odds that your dishwasher won't get destroyed? Yeah, it's waterproof, assuming it's just going to sit there and get sprayed with water. That's not the case. If the house gets knocked down, the dishwasher gets crushed, all those valuables and whatever else, family heirlooms that you put in the dishwasher get destroyed along with the dishwasher. Don't do that. That's not a good idea, right? We talked about other options as far as the thumb drive. Making copies of those things. The best option is to pack those things up and bring them with you when you evacuate. Don't leave stuff behind that's critically important to you, right? I'm waiting for some knucklehead to say, oh, well, put your kids in the dishwasher. No, bring them with you. Don't do that. It's not all doom and gloom, right? There's a couple of good ones out there. If you've got a bunch of food in the house that for whatever reason you can't bring with you, and you're not sure about your power situation, you're going to leave, you want to know if the power went out and came back on, did this thaw and go bad and then refreeze when the power came on, right? It's a consideration. If your financial situation is tight, maybe you really need to consider whether or not just throwing that food out, right? If you're like us, you've got a lot of food in the freezer, and throwing that out could be a pretty big chunk of change that you then have to replace. So there's two suggestions I've seen that are pretty good. One is taking a cup of water, freezing it solid, and putting a coin in the top, right? So the coin sits on top of the ice. That goes back in the freezer. The idea is if the power goes off while you're away, the freezer thaws, the coin, right? The ice then turns back to liquid. The coin sinks to the bottom. Power comes back on. Everything refreezes. Coin is now at the bottom of that block of ice instead of the top where you left it. There is a noticeable clue that everything in the freezer had thawed and then refroze, right? Because that coin dropped. The other one is even simpler, and it's just taking a water bottle or any other container of water, filling it halfway, putting that in the freezer and freezing it solid, and then turning it vertical, right? So it goes in this way, freezes, and then we stand it up this way. So if it thaws, gravity takes over and it sinks to the bottom of the vessel, right? The water drops down and refreezes. If it doesn't look like that icicle that you left in there, obviously it thawed and then refroze. You know that food has been compromised and should be replaced. So there's some good tips out there. There's some bad tips out there. Yeah, not a big fan of that dishwasher thing. April says hygiene and self-care products not only help you stay physically healthy, but also mentally healthy. And this is one I go back and forth with one of the members of my team, is he goes, well, my bug out bag doesn't include personal hygiene. I'm not going to waste the space and weight of deodorant, toothbrush, toothpaste, razor, soap, shampoo, all those things, because I can go a few days without it. And my response to him was, you can go a few days without it somewhere else, you stinky animal. Obviously, I'm not going to kick him out for being stinky. He's not going to kick me out because he's stinky. The point is, we're social animals. We have to be around each other, even in these bad situations. Don't be the smelly guy in the shelter. Nobody likes the stinky kid. Don't do it. There's also something to be said for maintaining your mental well-being. If you smell good and you feel clean, you feel a little bit better about your situation. Even if you went through a bad scene and got real dirty, washing that off feels good, right? Being able to clean that bad situation, literally or metaphorically clean that bad situation off of yourself, is going to feel good. Provide that for your kids too, right? Same thing applies to them. If they're all dirty and gross, if you've got boys, a boy is really just a noise with dirt on it. But cleaning him at the end of the night, he's going to feel much better. We do it every day here. It's part of the process. And if it's part of your routine, continue that routine. Bring that normalcy to this abnormal situation. Tim's making the joke, you don't put kids in the dishwasher, kids go in the oven. Joe Girardi won't fit in the dishwasher. Joe, you're kind of small, and I bet with the proper motivation, I can crumple you up and fit you in there. April says, also something to keep your brain busy. Won't be able to play on the phone nonstop, card games, book travel, small travel games, etc. So there's another hot tip from April. She's kind of taken over the show. She should probably just come over here and talk to you guys, but she's being weird about it. So mental health stuff, right? And this comes in a bunch of different forms, especially for kids. Where's the camera? There. Little stuffed animal, right? This is not essential for your bug out bag, and as an adult, maybe it is. Maybe you need, your cuddle buddy. That's fine. But for kids, this is critically important. If you've ever seen, and I hope most of you haven't, but if you've ever seen a crime scene where there was a child involved, law enforcement, fire department, generally those guys, in addition to having the emergency stuff to help you feel comfortable, the blanket that they wrap you in, a lot of times they have little teddy bears for the kids as a comfort item. Those comfort items are critically important. So when you're packing your food, you may want to throw some sweets in there, some snacks, some comfort food for the kids as well, or for yourself, right? Your brain functions just like everybody else's. A little something to make you feel better in a bad situation is never a bad idea. It may very well be worth the wait going into your kit. Joe says he can't wait out the hurricane with me. Sure, Joe, you can be my snuggle buddy. Yeah. So don't go nuts. As far as those comfort items, you don't need to bring the entire entertainment center with you. A couple of games, small stuff, right? Card games. Uh, I'm assuming if you go to places like Five Below, they've got little knick-knacky things you can get. Throw those in there. For boys, listen, man, Hot Wheels cars, they're $1. They take up little to no space whatsoever. They don't cost much. They don't take up much space. They're doing little mystery packs with a car and a sticker in them. Ask me how I know. And that's an easy thing that you can throw in the bag for a couple of the boys, and everybody gets one. Boys will play with cars for hours and hours and hours. If you have girls, make suggestions. Let me know what you think is a good idea for the girls. I'm sorry, I'm very boy-oriented. Cisgendered male children. Sorry. I know it's not very progressive of me, but it is what it is. What's that?
Play-Doh and blocks.
Play-Doh and blocks. Yeah, April suggesting Play-Doh and blocks for the kids. Not a lot. Obviously, maybe one or two of the small Play-Doh containers, a small package of blocks that they can play with. And realistically, Plan B stuff. You break a handle on something, you can use the Play-Doh to replace the handle. It dries out, gets kind of hard. It's not as good as the original handle, but gives you something to grip. Blocks, if they're wood blocks and it really comes down to it, maybe you sneak one of those out of the pack, shave it for kindling, and use that to light your fire. Constantly thinking outside the box, and always things are multiple uses. Rachel says Legos. There you go. Kids love to build, and even in a disaster, you can go through that exercise of rebuilding it together, making it better, right? Rachel also says dolls. Dolls kind of seem really obvious, right? And again, that thing to cuddle, that thing to hold on to, that comfort item, in addition to something to play with and keep the kids entertained. Coloring books are huge. Again, take up very little space. Pack of crayons, markers, colored pencils, whichever one you prefer. Yeah. Joe Girardi says Monopoly's where it's at. Might start a fight in the emergency shelter, just saying. Jimmy says put Play-Doh in a Ziploc bag to conserve space. Yeah. If you don't need the container, right? Or maybe the container can serve another purpose. I don't know. How creative are you? Ziploc bags are always a good idea. I've said you put those in the Ziploc bags by themselves belong in your emergency kit because they can serve a lot of different purposes. You want to know more? Take the class or wait for that video that we're working on. We're still working on that, right? Sorry, John. And Kevin Middaw's here. Hey, Kev. Kevin's job is going to be cooking bacon in any scenario. So make sure you have bacon in an emergency, Kevin. Yeah. More questions, comments, any of that stuff, guys? Hit me up. What do you got? We got a few more minutes left here. For those of you watching this on YouTube, I'm not answering your questions. We broadcast these on Facebook Live every Friday night, and we get I read the stuff on air and kind of go back and forth and waiting to see if anybody's got any words of wisdom, pearls, questions, things like that. People are saying hi to each other. Joe Girardi says he's a scrambled eggs kind of dude. You can make scrambled eggs in a Ziploc bag. Tim's asking if it's a shark bite. No, Tim, it's water tonight. I mentioned that earlier. It's definitely water. If you want to bring this stuff to make a shark bite, that'll get you through the door. John says, didn't we say we need to do reshoots for the bug out bag video? I don't know, John. Maybe we do. We'll talk at some point and coordinate that. But yeah, one of the many irons in the fire and projects that needs to get finished. Beer in a Ziploc bag. My opinion is beer is not a great survival item. Brown liquor tends to be better. Hard stuff. Tolerates weather better, doesn't go flat. more bang for your buck. You can mix it with other things. Beer, kind of weak sauce. Also, more likely to cause hangovers than whiskey or rum or any of those things, depending on what you mix it with. Carbonation tends to be a problem. All right. Why is this giving me fits? Here we go. April says strawberries, watermelon, chocolate, or some other things that will get you through the door. Can you tell she's being very specific about our immediate situation, and the cravings are real? John Willett says ounces equal pounds and pounds equal pain. Listen, man, that's always it's always something to be considered. I carry some pretty heavy stuff, but it's because I feel it's worth the weight. So pounds equal pain. Drop the pounds you need to. It is what it is. My brother's also pointing out that hard liquor can cause a false sense of warmth. So that's definitely something. He's absolutely right. That's definitely something to consider if you are exposed to the weather. In the cold, it can give you a false sense of warmth and create an increased risk of hypothermia. In the heat, you can forget to drink regular fluids and hydrate and cause dehydration that way as well. Be sure to drink responsibly, kids, even in a disaster. What happened to orange Gatorade? I don't know, Rachel. What happened to orange Gatorade?
I had cravings for orange Gatorade and salsa, remember?
Oh, right. I was a zombie that night. I was just following orders. Terry says, we have one of those emergency battery packs that has outlets for your phone, place to plug things in, and jumper cables. Always make sure it's fully charged when bad weather approaches. There's a couple of different kinds of those. One of the ones I really like, and I actually carry it with me every day because it's super small. It's like literally the battery pack is roughly the size of my cell phone. It's made by a company called WeGo. I sell them through the business. Chris Quaglin, who was watching earlier, he hasn't commented recently. I don't know if he's still watching. But Chris Quaglin turned me on to those products. I had only been familiar with the bigger like jumper cable boxes that weigh like 35 pounds and hold their charge for about, I don't know, long enough to get out to the car and charge it once and then it's dead. If you charge it and throw it in your trunk, pretty much it's dead when you pull it out. I don't know like what the deal is there, but you really had to stay on top of charging them. The JS6, JS12, JS18s from WeGo are really, really good. They're rated for the size of the engine you're going to try and jump, but you can also, there's a flashlight built in on them. You can also charge your cell phone, any USB rechargeable items. Those are really handy, and I like them a lot. And because they're so small and lightweight, that goes in my everyday carry bag. So I've always got that thing with me, and I use it quite a bit as like a backup battery pack for charging my phone or a couple other devices I keep with me. And I have used them to jumpstart cars. And the nice thing about them is the batteries they use, I think they're lithium ion, whatever the battery is, maintains its charge for a really long time. Like I can charge that thing up to 100% and throw it in the bag and carry it for like 6 months. And when I take it out, it's still got like 80% of the battery. So it's not like I have to charge it every week to keep it usable. It doesn't require a whole lot of maintenance and upkeep. They're really good. Yeah, good comment, Terry. Thank you. Rachel says, on a happy note, NJ SafeCon is 14 days away. In 2 weeks, September 22nd and 23rd. September 22nd are all the courses. September 23rd is the actual SafeCon. Tickets are available from blackbagresources.com. If you haven't purchased your ticket, go there, buy them now, and we will see you there. Rumor has it they've got a new MC for the event this year who's going to be super cool. I don't know if they've announced it yet, but I'll keep dropping hints. Tab is here. Hey, Tab. Tim says if you have a laptop and USB charger, you can use the laptop to keep your phone charged. Laptop is pretty useless in outages, but the battery is helpful. Yeah, depending on what you're doing with it, definitely an option, Tim. And some of these, like the Wegos I talked about, you can use those to charge your computer too. So if you do have Wi-Fi and signal and you want to run the devices and all that, you know, depending on what the scenario is, you might actually be using the laptop. So John Willett says super cool. Jimmy says useless, solitaire, minesweeper, key in a disaster. And Rachel is taking credit for picking the new master of ceremonies for SafeCon. Yeah, SafeCon's going to be a big deal this year. Hey, if you didn't know, April is going to be one of the guest speakers. How's that for a reason to go? You can listen to whatever it is she's going to talk about, because I'm not privy to it. All right, guys. Last round of questions, and I'm going to get out of here. Joe Girardi wants the mug. Joe, if you want one of these mugs, there's really only one way to get them. And that's keep an eye on Black Bag Resources. And when we do different charity events, that's how you get one of these mugs. Unfortunately, it's going to cost you a pretty penny because I don't sell them. We use them as, like I said, fundraisers. And I think the cheapest one of these mugs went for about $200. I think that was Green for the Greens over the summer. But we also do them right before Christmas. And since Tab is here, we'll mention that. During the holiday season, Tab and a group of officers down in the Baltimore area organize what they call Ho Ho with the Popo, where a group of police officers organize, basically they adopt a couple of families and provide them with a full holiday experience. So we raise money for them by auctioning off the mugs as a fundraiser, and that's the only way to get one of the Problem Solver mugs. These will never be sold anywhere unless you find somebody who won one in an auction and they decide to flip it. But even then, I'm willing to bet the secondary market on one of these bad boys is going to be pretty high. And if you buy one, it's not going to a good cause. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. But it's not going to the causes that we use these for. So Terry has one. You sure do. Dominic is a big supporter of those events every year when we do one. Tom's won a couple of those auctions for different things. And he is very generous. You should be very proud of Dominic. He's a good egg. April's pointing out only one. There's probably more than one of these at the Faustino household.
Unless Joe took it.
No, I don't think Joe took it. Joe might have won one of her own. All right, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up here. Please be safe out there. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of things to consider. If you have other questions or comments or suggestions for what I should talk about next Friday, email me, Sean at blackbagresources.com. That's SEAN at BLACKBAGRESOURCES.com. And I will do my best to answer those questions either directly or we can talk about it on the show next week. Yeah. Lots of things going on in the world right now. Be kind to each other. Help each other out. Keep each other safe. And I will see you next week. Bye, Felicia.